Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. Welcome to the buy side, where we get really serious about the business of inventory and how do we scale acquisitions. And today we have two of the titans in the industry when it comes to this. And I am super pumped to have these guys on board with us. Welcome to Ruth and Dell, R squared of Bob Ruth Ford. Appreciate you guys joining us this episode of the Buy Side. How you guys doing?
Great, man.
Yeah, doing great. Thanks for having us, Frank.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So, I guess as we kick this off, I'm joined with my co-host Todd Caputo, who Todd has owned dealerships. He does consulting. He's a name that everybody knows in the industry now as well. But I want to hear, because Todd, you came from a place where you're second generation in the dealership world, and Rob, I'm assuming, right? Like Bob Ruth Ford, you're second generation?
Second generation, correct.
So how did that work? Because I know Todd's story and I know how he landed in the business.
Story, right? Like, we got to hear your guys' story. How'd you guys get involved in this wacky business?
Yeah, I'll answer Frank's question, but I'm second generation dealer. My dad bought the store in 1983. I was 6 years old. My parents were divorced, and we actually lived in an apartment above the dealership for 6 years. So when I say I grew up in the car business, I literally grew up in the car business. I lived at the dealership. I hung out with technicians and salespeople after school. And then as I got older, I started working there more, and I swore I'd never get into the car business after living at a car dealership. But here I am, and I think our claim to fame is, hey, Frank, welcome back.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. You guys kicked me out of the room.
Yeah. Anyways, I say our claim to fame is, we're in a very small market and a town of 2,900 people, and we sell about 400 cars a month. So we do a high volume in a very rural area. And then on the flip side too, we sell 8 used cars to 1 new car. So to me, it was a matter of survival. If you want to survive in a small market, you got to figure out how to sell used cars, because, the new car market is extremely competitive. And that was something, I would say my father has always instilled in me, is just, hey, the used car department, that's your bread and butter. You need to figure out how to sell more used cars. So here we are.
Gotcha. So, so along those, and I missed some of that, but somewhere along the lines, you and Dell connected. So,
well, hold on, Frank. Just let's get one thing clear. You need to understand. This guy lived in an apartment above his car dealership when he was like 6, 7, 8 years old. You missed that because you got bounced out of this meeting.
Yes,
think about that one for a second. You want to talk about growing up in the car business? I've never heard that story ever.
Yeah,
I thought I spent a lot of time as a car dealership as a kid. My dad got in 79.
My mom and my dad met at a car dealership too. So I was literally, I think, conceived in a dealership. So I mean, it's in my blood. Anyways.
That's awesome, and I'm upset I missed part of that story. But man, you're right, Todd. Talk about growing up in a dealership, living above it. You get to really learn what it is to be in the business, right, and breathe the business. So, Rob, Dell, you guys connected at some point, and you guys have been together for a while. How did that happen? What happened? How did you guys land in each other's work, in each other's lives?
So I worked in this market.
You're muted, buddy.
Oh, can you hear me? So I worked. All right. So I worked in this market.
Can't hear him.
Never met Rob, and
I can't hear him, Frank.
Can you hear me?
I got him. I got him.
It's weird. I don't hear him. You hear him and I don't?
Yeah.
We got all kinds of technical issues.
StreamYard, what are you going to do?
All right, I'm gonna log out and log back in.
We keep forging ahead.
What the heck?
Do you want me to wait for him to come back or just keep rolling?
We just keep rolling, man, because we can edit some of this stuff as well. And hey, look, the rest of the car world will know, like, hey, sometimes stuff happens and we pivot, and whether we keep rolling through the whole episode or not, or edit it or not, doesn't really matter. It's about the content. So
yeah. So I'll answer the question. So I worked in the same market of this store. Knew who Rob was. He knew who I was, but we never met. And I moved to Ocean City, Maryland, where I have a house, and was running a store down there, and thought I was going to semi-retire, and realized I hated being bored at a small dealership. So long story short, I wanted to come back to Pennsylvania, work at a single point store. I worked for a lot of corporations. I didn't want to do the corporate thing, and I emailed him. And the funny part is he can't even spell email. He's got 700,000 unread emails on his phone right now. I guarantee you. Okay.
Guaranteed.
He keeps promising he's going to get better. He won't. But somehow, buddy, it's been almost 8 years. So, somehow, by the grace of God, he read my email and he called me and we met for lunch. And I was kind of a new car guy. It was real simple in my mind. Everybody pays the same for the car. Maximize whatever programs out there. You could acquire used cars through the new car source. He was a used car guy, so the company was growing, and he was like, "Hey, what do you want to do?" And it's like, "Well, I want to be your general manager. That's kind of what I've done." And he's like, "Yeah, that's me." And I'm like, "All right." And so he called me the next day and said, "Hey, let's make this happen." And I said, "What am I going to do?" And he's like, "You're going to be a sales manager." And I thought, man, I haven't been one of those for a while, but he was right. I had to come in and earn trust and build respect for the team and help the team. And we've been through a whole lot over the last 7-8 years. And, as we know, now we're both used car guys, and we still are new car guys, but, you can control the used side a lot more.
I like to say I converted Rob to the dark side. I hired him for the new car. I thought together we'd be this, just huge, great new car guy, great used car guy. But I think we both kind of swayed more toward, we see the opportunity to grow the company with our used car department for sure.
100%.
Yeah. And it's interesting. It's Todd and I have, connected quite a bit over the last couple of years, and, hearing some of his story and, selling new cars, but then eventually, becoming the used car king of the Northeast, and started putting a lot of energy.
Well, maybe I'm not after I hear how many cars were these guys selling a month when I was in business? Because I was in the same part of the country they were. How many new and how many used you guys doing a month?
Last month we did 341 total in January. 21 were new.
Okay.
So, but if you go back over the last, 9-12 months, I mean, like Rob said, it's about 400 total, and it's about 50 of them are new.
Okay, so now I got to ask the question: when you guys joined up together and started working together, you guys were both focused on new. Obviously, you're watching the car, and at that time I was at CarMax and loving life. And at CarMax, we, obviously used car giant. We sold a few new cars and transitioned completely out of selling new. I guess my question is, you guys are in the dealership together, you're working together, you're probably seeing, CarMax go and stick their hand in the air and buy every used car in Manheim, PA that they can possibly get their hands on. At what point did it really start to move in a different direction? Because you haven't always sold 300 and some used cars, right? Like, what was it like 8 years ago?
It was in the 200s. I mean, okay. It was in the 200s. And we had a lot of growth before COVID, and we were on top of the world right before COVID. And then all of a sudden the government comes in, the world goes crazy, shuts their business down, and all of a sudden, the rug's ripped out from underneath us, and we were inoperable for 60 days. So that was a tough thing for us as a high volume store. We had to pivot a lot. I mean, we let go a lot of our staff, but at that time and during COVID, I think is when we really made some shifts that are for the right direction.
Okay. So So you're selling about 200 now. So, you look at that number and you go, so we're talking in 8 years, a 33% jump. A lot of places would absolutely kill for that sort of jump in their business. But I hear Dell talk all the time, and he's not even, I mean, you both are the same way. You're both not satisfied with that number at all.
No, and I think you nailed it. I mean, I think once you get satisfied, if we sit here and pound our chest on it, that we're not reaching for anything and we're letting the whole company down, and people that, that depend on us, that are looking for bigger and better opportunities. I mean, there's no other option than to continue to grow. So with that, there's a lot of challenges with it. We the service department, we get the capacity. The more used cars we sell, the more capacity issues that we have in our service department. So that forces you to expand. And now it's like, okay, how do we expand faster? And these things take time. So we get in these like periods of like rapid growth, and then we kind of like stall a little bit until we can figure out what the next step is.
So something you said, it takes time.
It takes time.
And I know you've been building on trying to build, your buying command center, and that's been a point of focus for you guys for some time. And what would you say to people who are listening to this and decide, hey, these guys are right. I've been thinking about getting into this used car game, and I'm going to jump, feet first in. But and Todd, he has this frustration. I have this frustration when we talk to dealers because they want it all right now. And so they go out, they buy a bunch of inventory, and now that inventory ages, they take these losses, and now they're stuck and saying, well, these used car things, this doesn't work at all. I don't know how these other guys are getting success. What advice would you give Dell to start somebody?
Well, I think one, and I say it all the time, everybody has to be bought in from the top to the bottom, right? And that's really hard, and I'm aware of that. But Rob lives in Florida. I'm in Pennsylvania, which that apartment he talked about, this was his kitchen. That's my office, right? Yeah. So we have to be in alignment, and we have to communicate. Like, and I'm just using me and him because we're both here right now. But the acquisition team, the people that number cars, they have to understand the vision. It has to go to the sales managers. It has to go to my internal service techs, the internal service writers, the guy that checks in the car. Like, Rob literally drew this stick figure that we had forever. I wish I had it right now. And the drawing was horrible, but there's a man with money, right? Like a little bag of money, right, Rob? And this is how we communicated it. And I'm not trying to sound mean here, but you got to dumb it down so everybody can relate. The man with money goes and buys a car. Then car comes here. First thing in our world, car gets merchandised, right? Then leads in. Car goes through the shop and recon later. Like, first you got to get it out there to the world. Then, we engage with the lead, customer transacts, they go to finance, we get a trade, but then the whole circle starts over again. And I think that's the big key is you have to, at the beginning, if you're buying 0, you got to buy 10. And then you can talk about getting to 20. You're not getting to 200 like we're at right now. It took us a long time to get there. And look, I talk about all the time, there was a bunch of mistakes that happened in the middle of it. But, Rob knows. I'll call him up and I'll be like, hey, man, like, this just happened. This bad title, this stolen car, whatever. We paid too much, which doesn't mean we should price it for too much. We still got to turn the car. And then really start understanding the data, which turns into efficiencies. And, Rob talked about it. We're in one of those stalling points right now. We need another minimum today, 25 days, minimum. We can't snap our fingers and get it. Our inventory average is probably 20 days, and we're trying to bring 20. How do you get it? But we have to.
I'll add to that too, to answer your question too, Frank. And that, we brought up some great points, but if the thing with us, we didn't have a choice to create that buying center. It was during COVID, and there were new cars. You had your microchip situation. We had no new cars on the ground. And then all of a sudden, the auctions just went absolutely crazy. And the wholesale was higher than retail, and it was trying to catch up. We were a volume store, and unless we figured out how to, put some food on the shelves, we were going to have to downsize again And we're a store built on volume. I mean, our whole business model is volume. So our buying center came out of a desperate moment. And it literally was like, we either grow this now and do it quickly, or we're going to have to, go through some of the things that we absolutely hated during COVID and had to let go of people and downsize. We didn't want to do it. So, our buying center just came, myself, Rob, the first couple of days, we went on Marketplace. We started communicating with people that had their car for sale. We started making offers and we started buying cars. And it was like, wow, look at that. The first couple of days, we were just shocked. Then it was like, wow, we're on to something here. We need to scale. And we just did it. And I think that's the difference between our situation. We didn't have a choice, and dealers do have a choice, and they may say they want it, but like you said, they want instant gratification and they don't do it. That's what I see from my vantage point.
Yeah. So guys, I got a lot of questions, but I'm going to start with this one, right? So you retail 21 new cars in a month and you retail 310 used. That's what you told me, right? So out of those 310, I'm assuming some of them are new car trades, but it's obviously not very many because you're not really selling a lot of new cars. So, let's break it down, right? If you sold, let's call it 300, what percentage of those 300 cars that you retail were auction? What percentage of those were service drive? What percentage of those were Facebook? Like, where are you getting cars from? If you don't mind sharing. If you don't want to share, I get it. I don't know if I'll everybody get everything either, but like, how are you getting these cars?
So I'll let Rob looking at the data right now. He's going to give you exact answers, but we get cars anywhere we can. I mean, we have an acquisition team, and it's not like your typical used car buyer or used car manager that you're thinking. I mean, we're talking entry level people that we've just taught to communicate, and they're searching anywhere they can to find inventory. I mean, maybe it's Facebook, maybe it's Craigslist, maybe it's calling local dealers and seeing if they have aged inventory, getting trade-ins from other places. So, I mean, we just try to scale out any possible way we can, but Rob's going to answer your question here right now.
Yeah, and I'm trying to pull up the data from last year, and I can't pull it up right now because I annualized all of it. But roughly 42% of it comes from off the street purchases. Probably another 20-ish% is going to come from new cars. You're going to have, I think for the year last year, auction, Rob, was about 18%.
I was going to say 15.
Yeah, and then so you have new car trades. I track new car trades, used car trades, auction, off the street buy. And then from there, we'll separate it, like what source did it come from on off the street. But it's funny when I took all this data and compiled it, trades are number one. So you hit it on the head, Todd. That's our number one opportunity. They sell the fastest. They have the highest return, the highest PVR. No doubt about it. That's never going to change in any car dealership, in my opinion. But we need to get more of them. Then it's your off the street because it's less competitive, right? Like, and there's less fees involved with it. And then auction is last. And I'll tell you a stat that this is why everybody needs to figure it out. For the year, on the front end of auction cars last year, we lost $600 on average.
Yeah, I believe that. Yeah,
Right.
I totally believe that. So what's your average retail selling price of a used car?
$26,000.
All right, so it's not like you're selling really inexpensive, cheap used cars, and that's not the case. So these are later model, lower mileage, either used cars or trucks, right? And you're telling me that 40+% of them were quote unquote off street, which could be you're advertising to people to get them to come in and sell their car, or you're pounding Facebook, Craigslist, Auto Trader, Cars.com, Car Gurus, anybody that's got a private party car for sale, you're hitting. And only 15% were auctions, right? That's what you said, which makes a lot of sense too. So how many people do you have, and what technology are they using at that scale to go after all of these off-street purchases?
So go ahead, Rob. Go ahead.
It's not necessarily the technology. It's just about the attempts. I mean, they need to, it's fishing. They need to go out and find opportunities every day. And we have it down to, if they find 25 cars a day, they're going to purchase about 10% of it. So two and a half cars a day. If you multiply that times, the 20 days that they're working, they can buy up to about 50 cars. That's about the model when it comes to. But we have 5 reps?
5 reps that are outbound, yes.
Yeah, we have 5 outbound reps.
And then what about inbounds? I mean, I'm assuming, are you marketing to the public? Obviously, you're in a small town, right? So I'm assuming you're going to cast the net further out into that area of the world where you guys are, which is where in PA are you again?
Right by Harrisburg.
Right, so you're by Harrisburg. So that's a good market. So you got Maryland, you got Pennsylvania, you can get into Jersey, even northern Pennsylvania, maybe even southern New York, maybe okay, so you got a wide net to cast, and I'm assuming
300 miles is our net.
What'd you say?
300 miles is the radius that we go from our store to acquire inventory.
Okay. All right. And then these people you're training, you said that they're not necessarily car people, right? They're just people that know how to talk to people on the phone and how to message over Facebook, over Messenger, right, or other things. Are you using Van or anything like that to help be more efficient, or you're just old school?
Old school.
Really?
Yeah, and I honestly, Todd, I think this is where dealers go wrong too. Is we look at it and we try to train our people that we're providing a service to people that are selling their car. Okay, so we try to take the pain away from that person that has to liquidate that car for whatever reason and make it very simple and easy. And that's our competitive advantage against the private, the private who, they may need financing or, who knows what the situation is. Can you trust them? Are they? That's where we come in as a dealer with a reputation and, obviously good funds. We can do the title work and we'll come to you and we take this pain away from you selling your car. That's our claim to fame.
So are you buying cars from other dealers? I mean, I used to do that. Like dealers knew that I would write a check if they had an overage car and they were short on cash. You guys did the same thing?
Yep.
So you got wholesalers or other dealers who call you if they want off of a car and they don't want to take it to an auction?
Yeah, it's a very small number, but yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we're trying to keep building that brand and get our reps just to keep relationships going with other dealers as well.
And then one other question, I'll turn it back to Frank because I know he's probably got a couple questions, but that's a lot of cars, right? When I think about the number of cars that you're obtaining from people or auctions or wherever, right? And then the number of cars you're retailing, and then the number of cars you're potentially wholesaling, which I'd love to get into wholesale at some point too while we're talking here. But you got to have people to process all these titles. You got a lot of money going in and out. You got cars that you're going to either own for cash or you got a floor, cars you got to pay off, titles you got to chase, lien releases you got to chase. Like, who's keeping track of all this? And are you using any kind of digital system that you created on your own, or are you just using your DMS to track? Like, how are you tracking all these titles and all this logistics? It's a lot of work.
You want me to answer that one, Rob?
Yeah. You're exactly right. It is.
Yes. And to answer your question, and Todd, you understand this. So on the second floor where I sit up here, there's 5 girls in accounting out here there's 3 title clerks, accounts payable. I have a controller, I have a CFO up here, and an HR director. That's it. That's all the admin that we have. And efficiency is the key, no doubt about it.
Absolutely.
And the communication's the key, because you can't have efficiency without communication. They do a really good job. There is no real technology or system that we use. We have built things to track and help communicate and cross departments. So like the sales department, even the salespeople know the status of a title through some systems that we do have. Because one of our big issues in Pennsylvania, if you're out of state buying a car, I can't sell it until I have a title to sell it to.
New York was the same way. So I had the exact same issues. You couldn't even advertise a car if you didn't have a title.
Right. So, so like there'll be communication in there, and we sell cars on average under 20 days is the average age in the stock. So it's a fast moving machine. But, it wasn't that way always, but we get better and stronger every day. But everybody here knows what the mission is and knows how the system works. And it's just communication, and that's it. Like, you can communicate with any tool if you created one. You can make a Google sheet and communicate. We could have a group text and communicate, but it's communication.
Yeah.
I will say something Rob and I always say, and I'm like, let's break the machine, because you don't know how to fix it until you got to push the boundaries, and pushing those boundaries at every level. When we first started buying cars, the level might have been 30, 40 cars.
Right.
When you start to have these problems that you're talking about, Todd, but then as you're having the problems, you figure out solutions for it. And I think that's how we've kept growing, is like, we're going to hit roadblocks. We're going to have issues, but we just don't stop. Okay, what do we do now? Like, what steps can we put in place that can solve that problem that you're talking about?
Well, and one of the things that was obvious to me, and I don't bring it up enough, when we started this, we had some reps and they formed their own opinions of what the right inventory is. Now think about this. We tell them, go buy the right inventory, right? And our average transaction price is 27 grand and this, that, and the other thing. And we had this rep, I was walking through the showroom one day and he's like, yeah, we don't want this car. And it was like a current model year Corvette, right? And maybe I want it, maybe I don't, but we put a number on everything. We didn't say we don't have to put the best number on everything. And that consistency is the key. How many times do they call somebody else and they get told no? And even in my world, like I have a 24 Lightning, I just ran through Carvana's system the other day. Now it is a Ford lease, and basically Carvana told me no because it's a lease. I understand that, but I wanted to see their message to see what the friction was, right? So maybe I hit that car 3-4 grand light, but I'm a Ford dealer and I can take it in. Now that opens up an opportunity. Well, now guess what? I transact with you once. You probably are going to consider buying or servicing your car if you live in the area. But if not, how many customers have we transacted with 10 to 20 times from that initial purchase?
Yeah.
That's the magic.
Yep.
So something you said, and I don't want to gloss over it, and that is, last year you had, I think you said, if I'm doing the math, you had 15% of your cars that were bought at auction. If you sold 300, a month, let's call it 3,600, which translates to 540-ish cars that you're sourcing at auction, right? Like just quick math. Sourcing 540 cars and losing $600 per car, like what? How do you process that? Like, I guess, like,
did you?
Yeah,
you like Rob Ruth. You're like,
I think
you have to look at that, and you have to embrace the vision of what you're trying to accomplish, right? And then be able to convey that vision down to everybody. But if in just quick math, if you look at the $540, that you or 540 cars, you lost $600 a car. Call that $300,000 if we just throw a number out there that you lost on the front end of those cars. But I'm willing to bet you're probably going to tell our audience a little something about that $300,000 loss and what it meant to the bottom line.
Well, that's exactly right. And I think that's where people go wrong as well. It's just, you got to look at this as one big company. That used car, and we'll go back to my diagram, that's going to go through your service and your parts department, and you're going to pick up 50% profit on whatever that RO is. Okay. The dealership does. Okay. Then you'll sell the car. Okay. We lose $500 in the front. You're going to pick up F&I money, and you're going to pick up debt fees, and you're going to pick up potentially trades that are our greatest source. We can't afford not to have those filler cars at this point in time. But yeah, I mean, do we like it? No, we don't like it. But what's the solution? I mean, volume is the only solution really in this market that, is going to help us to profitability. It really is. Everyone's complaining about, hey, this is no front end margin. Okay, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? You got to find a solution. And I think that's where we've always had this holistic vision of the whole company and what it does for that. And then we align our people with that. Our salespeople get paid off of volume and gross. Okay, so they can work both sides of their pay plan. They get paid off of F&I money. We just try to get everybody on the same page and rowing in the same direction.
Yeah. So I got a question. Go ahead, Frank. Sorry.
One thing that I look at every single week is the compression that's happening between wholesale and retail, right? And sometimes it widens and it gets a little bit better. But right now, you would look, and it's about a $3,000 spread between what I buy auction to what I can retail a car for, which doesn't leave any margin in there. So, I think it's important for dealers to understand that fact that we can't change the numbers. The market is what the market is. If I look at a car and I buy it for 27 and I can only buy it for 30, that doesn't mean I can push that car to 31. And it certainly doesn't mean that I could walk away and not buy that car because I absolutely have to have it. So, but I think, the one thing that's important for our audience to understand is because you have this robust system of buying from the public, you can offset those losses of buying at the auction to make sure that your inventory is always right sized. And that's where, the mantra that we have is, there are no bad channels, there's just bad strategy. Clearly, you guys have a strategy for what you do with the public, what you do with wholesalers, what you do with auction cars, what you do with rental cars. There's a strategy for each one of those channels. And so I would impress on our audience, if you don't have a strategy, reach out to Todd, reach out to R Squared, reach out to me. Let's talk about what that strategy could look like so that you can start to scale some of your volume in your particular market. Todd, you were going to try.
So I want to talk a little bit about fixed ops, if that's okay with you guys. So how many customer pay ROs are you doing a day at your Ford store?
In this store, just call it 800-900 a month. So,
all right, so
divide that by 20, 40.
Okay. All right. So that's a decent amount. So how many bays do you have? I mean, I'm just trying to think about how you're processing all these used cars that you're running through and how many days it's taking you to actually get these cars set up. Because you said you needed 25 more bays. So
35 bays.
I'm trying to do some math here while you guys are talking and
so
walk me through this.
Okay. So in this building, there's 16 bays. In 300 yards away, there's 10 more. 9 miles away, there's 9 more. There's 35 bays.
Yeah, 35 bays.
All right, so you're shuffling cars wherever you got to get them done. I imagine you probably got storage lots, holding lots that are fenced in, right? And you got people running cars back and forth all different places all day long. Yeah. You got cars that are getting brought to other dealers to get recalls taken care of. Like you guys have a lot of logistical things to juggle when you're dealing with that many cars. Because I used to live it, right? I get it. So no quote unquote centralized recon facility then?
Not as yet.
Have you thought about that, or is that not an option?
It's an option.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're at that point right now. Just, if you've ever been to our store, I mean, if you've ever seen pictures, it's a freaking tin can. I mean, and honestly,
it's an old Ford store.
It's an old Ford store that it's just been pieced together. We built a service center next to us during COVID because we had to, but we just keep outgrowing it. And, I want to make the right decisions. I don't want to just put up a fancy building because the manufacturer says I need a fancy building.
I understand.
That's not what is going to sell cars. So we're trying to figure out right now what that next move is and, just looking at all options.
Yeah. And another question about fixed ops, when you're selling that many used cars, how many, if you had to roughly guess as a percentage of all these used cars you're selling, do you retain those customers as fixed ops customers that come back for maintenance items and things like that? Is it a high percentage or a low percentage?
I think it's a high percentage in the first 12 to 18 months. And if I would guess, that number is probably around 60%. Yeah. But we do a lot of business all over the United States also. So that, different business model than what most people would be up against. So, I would love to tell you, hey, we're 75, 80%, but that's probably not the case. But I bet you it's north of 50 for sure.
And the real gold in the car business is your fixed ops. And for me, I was always a variable guy. I always liked selling. But I learned as I, get further into my career, the more used cars I sell, I'm like, wow, we're doing more service work. Like, wow, these numbers are growing. So it didn't take me long to figure out. And, I talk to the techs. I'm like, listen, I love used cars because it helps all of us, and the more we can just keep food on that, going through that department, it forces us to get bigger. And there's such an opportunity in fixed ops for us. just with all the clients that we've sold, we can't even market to because we can't handle more than what we have. We've got this constant like used car customer pay, Who's going to win? So that balancing act is something we've learned to do throughout the years.
So are you charging full retail to your used car department?
Yes.
What about on like inexpensive used cars? Let's say a $10,000 used car with 100-something thousand miles on it. Is it still door rate, or you don't do a reduced rate on those? Still door rate.
They can negotiate it. I mean, our service department, our service managers, they know that, hey, our used car department is our best client. Let's just keep it moving. Let's just keep this thing turning.
So what I heard you say is, when you think about used cars, if you are building out a robust used car department, that can absolutely and should absolutely be the lifeblood of the dealership. It's everybody eats when you're buying used cars, right?
That's it.
And one thing I heard you say, like, and you guys keep talking about growth, and I absolutely, I know both of you guys, and you're pushing. I heard Rob Dell say a number, and I was floored by the number, because at one point you said 1,000 cars, Rob.
Well, we're going to buy 1,000 from the public in 1 month, and we're going to retail 1,000. Yes.
I've had that vision in my head for years and years. When you go from 50 to 100, then 100 to 200 and 204, well, why can't we scale it out? There's obstacles. There's no question.
Look, you absolutely can. And I'm living, not living proof, but I worked in an organization where, look, when I left CarMax to go work for Off Lease Only down in Florida, right? I worked there for a few years, and I was amazed. One of the things I was most amazed by is when I walked into that organization and saw them pushing out 700, 800 cars out of one location, and 5 locations pushing out 3,500 used cars. I mean, think about that. We had to go out and we had to buy 1,000 cars a week at times to satisfy that big organization. So it's certainly doable. And to people who are listening, look, you have to have a vision in order to get there. And then you have to stair-step that vision. One thing that I want to touch on, because we didn't talk a lot about this, but you talked about auction, you talked about buying from the public, you talked about buying cars off the curb if there's an appraisal that came in. What we haven't heard or really talked about is buying out of the service drive, and that seems to be something that everybody has been pushing, is service drive acquisition. You got to buy out of the service drive, and I always look at service drive acquisition, and I look at that number and I go, look, I can convert 2% out of the service drive. So I could park a body there to do 100 appraisals and buy 2 cars, or I can have them go to the auction or work the phones or do this and probably have a little bit more success. Curious how you guys feel about service drive acquisition. I think there's a place for it. I think this is where AI technology can help scale service drive acquisition. But curious how you guys approach it, with Bob Ruth.
I think we agree with you, Chuck. A 2-3% conversion, and we've tried it. And to be honest with you, we just have not found that secret sauce yet. It hasn't penciled. How do we find that right person to do that we can justify the time and what they're paying and what they're accomplishing? We just haven't figured it out. So, I mean, I believe, Rob believes, and we've already talked with you, that's where technology needs to come in, and we just need to know who's interested. Tell me you're interested and we're going to go to work for you. But having someone there and just pushing every single client, I don't think it pencils.
Yeah.
And some dealers have figured it out, but we haven't. And I think if you had an extremely large, like, Wendell Hardy and Brian Kramer, when they were in Naples, I mean, they had a large Toyota, you had a ton of people coming through every day. So you can convert them into a sale if you have people pushing them. We try to avoid walk-in service traffic. We want you to drop off, or we want to come pick your car up and give us the time we need to do it right. So, we don't have a lot of people sitting there in our waiting room that we can, try to sell a car to every day.
Yeah. Frank, and I think we talked about that before. Like, I think in my mind, if you're an import in a metro market, you can convert 8%-ish, right? I've seen it done. In a rural domestic market, I think 2 or 3 is a real target. And in our world, with having 3 different service centers, one person can't manage all of them,
Right.
and that's what we've run into. And then it was frustration. So I think the technology.
That's technology.
Yeah,
you need a tech solution that interacts with a customer, typically probably by text message, to see if they're interested, to see if they bite at all. And if they bite, then you can get your people to go to work and try to buy their car, get them to trade up.
Signed up with
sure.
one of the tech companies yesterday.
There's a lot of them out there. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot.
It's okay to say which one.
Hey, auto acquire.
Yeah, so these guys, we're Auto Acquire is doing some work with Bob Ruth to figure out solutions, right? And
yeah.
Well, I would think
this isn't necessarily a plug for Auto Acquire, but it is a plug for technology. It is a plug for using technology to help scale an organization. You're not going to be able to do that with just going out and adding headcount. You're going to need to lean on AI. You're going to need to lean on the technology and the large language models and machine learning that's out there that can help you with that. And so we're going to solution some things, and I think we're going to have tremendous success, and everybody will be chomping at the bit for what Rob Squared comes up with in the next quarter here.
Well, look, I think that Auto Acquire makes. I mean, again, we're not here to pitch, but it would work because you've already got a team of people out there now that are going after cars that people are advertising for sale. So if you can go after the other cars that they also own in their quote unquote garage that are registered to them, you've already got the people in the process to do it. Why wouldn't you? Like, to me, that makes all the sense in the world.
Well, and you're exactly right. And that's what I talked to, Frank about yesterday. Look, all we need is engagement, right? Once we have engagement, which if you're marketing to them or using technology or whatever, that's branding. And if you continue it, they're going to remember it, right?
Yeah.
And you get the engagement, we already have the team built. We have the horsepower to go attack. That's exactly right.
Yeah. So I want to shift a little bit, Frank, to another question I got. I'm chomping at the bit to hear about this one. What are you doing with all these cars that you're not going to retail? What are you doing with your wholesale cars? Like, I got to hear it. Like, you must have a lot of cars to wholesale that just don't meet your standards. Where do these cars go? How do you handle wholesale?
You want me to take it, Rob?
Yeah, I think we do try to retail the majority. We're retailing, I think, almost 80% of what every trade-in, everything we acquire at this point in time. So it's not a large amount of wholesale. I believe in retail. Rob believes in retail. I mean, we just keep it in the system,
So you're selling as-is cars to the public?
Yes.
And you can do that in Pennsylvania, and they're decent cars.
Decent cars.
Yeah. So we're an inspection state in an emissions county. Okay. So we do sell as-is cars, but they are safe.
Yeah.
They are inspected in emissions, and they're able to be registered and tagged. So as long as it can make it through the pipeline, for lack of better words, under 150,000 miles, and we feel confident, we're going to retail.
So if the frame's not rotted and the body doesn't have holes in it all over the place, and there's no lights on, and it runs and drives good and passes state inspection, you're retailing that car.
We retail and we give our clients like a full inspection report of what we found, whether or not we fixed it or not. We're very transparent with that.
Got it. Well, that's good to know. So the other 20%, where are they going? I mean, are you wholesaling online? Are you taking them to, are you taking them to, to Lancaster to run them on Fridays? Like, what are you doing with your cars?
ACV, Harrisburg, America's Auto Auction. They go to Lancaster sometimes. A couple cars go to Mannheim. Just wherever we feel best.
Or sales, like a late model, if we're ever gonna, trying to liquidate an aged inventory of some sort.
Well, here's what I love, and I think it's a good takeaway for our audience, and that is when I think about how you guys acquire inventory. I reached out to Rob Dell yesterday and asked, hey, what widgets are you using on your website, right? And you're using a couple to help you solution, right? You're leaning on VinQ to help you solution. You're leaning on Auto Acquire now to help you solution. You're leaning on multiple channels to sell inventory, ACV, and I know you have ACV ClearMax, you use Facebook Marketplace. There is so much diversity in what you guys are doing. It truly amazes me because, you know, some dealerships, they walk in and there's a sense of loyalty to one particular company that, hey, I'm only doing business with this. And I think they're leaving something on the table, you know, at that point. So I'm really impressed by your organization and how many different ways you guys look at the business and try to really solve the age-old problem of how do I just get the inventory? And there's no one channel that's going to work. There's no one tool that's going to work perfectly. But if I stitch all these things together, I can come up with a solution that works for my organization.
So you guys are using ACV Max?
So kind of. We use ClearCar, their trade tool, on one of our sites. Yes.
Okay. So have you guys looked at Viper? Did you see what they just came out, a thing called Viper?
I did not yet.
So that's their tool that they have that is similar to UVI. They just released it at NADA. And if you're trying to like talk about how do we get more cars out of the drive, you don't necessarily want to have a person at it. And if you use an ACV, you know, if you're using ClearCar, potentially using Max, that might be something. Again, I'm not here to pitch anything, right? But just talking out loud. Like, so Viper might be something for you to look at because you potentially could literally have a car run through that. You know, it's like an arm, like you guys have seen this, right? Like UVI.
Yep.
And the car drives over it, and then it takes all kinds of pictures, and it basically does a CR. A lot of it's with AI, and then it will pull your data, pull the VIN, pull the odometer, and potentially give you, you know, some data on that car and give the customer an offer. And there's other tools out there that does it, but they just released that when you mentioned that you're an ACV customer, which a lot of dealers in the Northeast are, especially. That might be something for you guys to consider.
Yeah, when we go into the next expansion phase, we might have room for a tool like that.
Yeah, it doesn't take up a lot of space either. Like it just
come visit the store, you'll find it.
I want to come up sometime.
One of these days, I need to get up there and visit and just see your operation. Look, you know, this has been super informative, and I know we're coming up on time here, but I want to just, you know, from both of you, final words. What are your takeaways, or that someone can take away from this, and how do they use all the information that you provided to help them acquire inventory? Like, what would be your final words to the audience that's out there? And let's start with Rob, Ruth.
I think honestly, you just have to make the commitment and do it, and recognize it's not going to be easy, and you got to push through a lot of boundaries. But there's a lot of success on the other side of those things that I think dealers sometimes are scared to make because they're not going to see instant results. And that's my best advice to your audience.
Yeah. What about you, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, and Rob's watched me do this, is you got to understand the data, right? And I use the example of a 22 F-150 can be the hottest thing in the world for us, and 14 days later, it's cold as ice. And then if you understand the data that's being fed to you through a lot of your tools, that data is actually over a longer period of time. So in my mind, it's not relevant. So, you know, what works well in the last 2 weeks, how can we duplicate that and how can we eliminate it? And then, like I said at the beginning, it's communication, making sure everybody on the team understands what the mission is. And, you know, we ran into this in the Northeast this winter. Oh, you know, we don't need as many cars right now. Well, yeah, we do, right? Like, we just got to keep feeding the beast. And, you know, we talk about it all the time. Manheim's going crazy. Tax returns are coming, blah, blah, blah. Just communication to the team. And, you know, one of the things I try to do being in the store is, you know, my acquisition team I talk to every single day, and it's different people. It's not the whole team, but just touching base. And, you know, Rob and I talk, and then I got to go communicate that message because he's 1,100 miles away. And that's been the success for our team, is just communication from the bottom to the top.
Yeah. Yeah. And the data, and I'll just piggyback off that. The data tells you what to do, because our cost of the car's going to sell for whatever the car sells for.
That's right.
So you're not really trying to sell them for more. You're trying to lower the cost on what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
No, the buying center was our solution to that. It's just a lower cost than auctions.
Yeah. Look, guys, fantastic conversation this afternoon. Todd, always my partner in crime and co-host. You want to close us out?
Yeah, so I'll tell you my biggest takeaway. First of all, I applaud you guys. I know what you're doing is not easy at all, and if anybody thinks it is, they're a fool, right? You got to go all in, and it's got to be literally a part of your DNA of your business, starting at the top, right down to literally everybody in the store. But one of the biggest takeaways that I took is, I asked in a lot of cases, what technology are you using for this? What technology are you using for that? And they're not using anything real fancy or special here, right? It's a lot of just old school, hardcore grit, discipline, using the basic tools that we've all got in this business without spending any extra money on any fancy tools in order to get the job done. And I think that, there's a lesson there to be learned. And if I had to give these guys one suggestion, I would tell you, because you're so good at doing things, let's call it quote unquote a little bit old school, I think I would really look at some of the technology that's out there now that can literally help scale your old school mentality, which is there's a lot of AI technologies out there that will help you guys do that. Because then you're going to go from 300 used cars to 400 to 500 and eventually 1,000. I can tell you right now, I got to get your numbers offline because next time I drive up from North Carolina and I go back up to Syracuse to visit family and I drive, I know where I'm going to stop on my way up because I definitely want to come see your operation. I'd love to. I would absolutely love to come and see it. And really appreciate your time, especially on the second to last day of the month here. Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rob.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I appreciate you guys taking time out of the morning. I know it's a busy Friday as we come to the end of February tomorrow, which crazy to think we're already in the month of March. But everyone who is listening, please share the link. Valuable information in this. We want to thank you for taking the time to listen to us on the buy side, and tune in next week when we have some of our friends from the Lot Pop organization join us to really dive in and talk about data and how to use that data to go out and buy inventory. You heard it here with Rob that they use data extensively. We're going to talk more about that next week. I thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you on the other side.